and I'm just going to do a lot of the talking. So a couple things that I've noticed, we need our quick hands, strong legs, stable core and back, steady arms, all of these things that contribute to making a save. So when we're in there, we're in like an athletic stance the whole time. We're not just like standing there with our arms down in like a comfortable spot, leaning against a post. So I think it's super important, one, when I'm in goal, I don't know if any of you guys have seen me play, but I'm in an athletic stance. My feet are about shoulder width apart. That's just my stance. My knees are bent, so my quads, my hamstrings, all of my leg muscles are engaged. So I'm not just like in a relaxed position. My muscles are definitely engaged. When I'm in that set, my hands are also up. So that uses our arms, our stomach, our back, everything, our core. So being able to train these specific parts of our body, while it doesn't really feel important, you're like, oh, why do I need a strong core to stand in the goal? There's a lot that goes into it. Because if we're able to like hold that position and our body is very comfortable in that position and very strong, the more muscle that we have, the more quicker we can explode to each of the balls. Oh, and before, sorry, I continue. I just want to say that I'm not a physical trainer or a personal trainer in any sense. So I'm not technically, I'm not like prescribing exercise or anything. I just want you guys to know that like this is what's worked for me, this is what I found to be helpful, and this is just like based on the knowledge that I know from being in the weight room, from majoring in something health related. Just quick little disclosure. I'm not this is not a athletic training seminar. But
That's good. That's probably safe for me as well. Thank you for getting that
yeah, just so
disclaimer in
you
there.
guys know, and I know everybody's approach to exercise is different, but this is just what I found has worked, and I've seen benefits from myself, but this is not backed by any athletic trainer that I know of. So, now we can move on, now that I've made that clear. Alright, so we're going to talk about strength for a little bit. So, like I mentioned before, like, strength is pretty important for us. When we are set in that position, it can be kind of tiring. I don't know if you guys have done a wall sit before when you're, like, back's against the wall and then your legs are in that, like, low chair position. That's, like, kind of equivalent to what we are sitting in when we're in goal and that ball is actively on our side of the field. It's keeping our legs constantly engaged. It's keeping our core constantly engaged, whether you feel it or not. Our arms are up, they're ready, and everything's, like, a little tense. Because if you think about it, if you guys just sit at your computers right now, put your arms up, put your legs down, get into your stance, you can feel that your muscles aren't entirely relaxed. That means they're working. So when our muscles are working like that, it's super important just to train them over and over and over again. So then once we get in goal, there's no like fatigue happening. There's no like, oh wow, like even though it might be super minor, like there's no like part of your muscles getting any like more tired just through that stance of like waiting for a shot. So, what is important strength-wise? So we first want to build a foundation for explosion. So what I mean by this is, like I said, okay, I was interviewed a couple weeks ago, and they were like, what type of animal describes your play and goal? And the first animal that I thought of, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Kung Fu Panda, but that, like, snake that just sits there, and then she, like, moves super fast, and then, like, she sits there again, and then, like, strikes super fast again. That was the first thing that came to my mind, because I like to stay very, very still, and as do a lot of goalies. And then as soon as that shot comes, it's like quick explosion, like get there, and then like that's your work. You clear the ball, and like that's kind of like your thing. So that's definitely my jam. So like building this foundation for explosion where we're super, super still, but like our bodies are like confident in being in this position and comfortable being in this position to be able to react super quickly to whatever's coming our way. This is like the time that you see the ball coming to the time that you leave, like you explode to that shot, is where this strength training can really come in and where we can kind of control it, which is kind of cool. We'll get into that a little later. So then, not only do we want to build this foundation for explosion, but we also want to be able to maintain the same rate of explosive power throughout the game. So what I mean by this is we don't want to start off the game and be able to explode to the ball really quickly for like the first two shots, and then after that, even though like we feel good, like I'm not out of breath or anything, our muscles can be more tired, which means that we're not going to explode to the ball as quickly. So I don't know, like say first two goals of the game or first two shots of the game, they happen within like the first, I don't know, 3 minutes of the game. Then ball goes down to the other end, whatever, feel good. We're not physically tired. I'm not breathing hard. I'm not like exhausted. I'm not like, coach, I need a sub, because I know we have a good break. It's okay to admit. We have a good break when the attack has the ball. But then they come back down. Now I don't feel tired, but my muscles can kind of be tired from doing those explosive movements because they take up a lot of energy for our bodies to use. So being able to maintain that explosive power throughout the game is really important, and it has nothing to do with us like breathing heavy or feeling like tired, like exhausted, like I need to lay down. It's more of just like your muscles' ability to perform the same movement over and over and over and over again throughout the course of a game. Like whether you're seeing 5 shots, 7 shots, or you're seeing 40 shots. It doesn't matter. You want to be able to maintain it for that entire range. And then I'm going to give you guys a little science lesson in a bit, but we want to generate lots of fast twitch muscle fibers, which are the types of muscles that help us move really quickly, have explosive movement, get to the ball, get to where we want to go in a short amount of time. So that's what we want to focus on. Alright, so I told you guys I was going to give you a quick science lesson. I'm going to make this as easy as possible. So in our muscles, there's 2 main types of fibers. You have your slow ones and your fast ones. Just off of the names, what type do you guys think we need in goal? The slow ones or the fast ones?
What do you guys think? Throw it in the chat. I know we got a lot of youngsters on the call. So slow twitch or fast twitch?
The answer's on the screen.
Fast for sure. Fast for sure. Everyone's saying fast, so we
All
got
right.
it.
Good job, guys. So pretty
All right.
much we have our slow ones, which are called our type 1, and then we have our fast ones, which are called type 2. So just to create like a little bit of a difference, our type 1s are called slow twitch muscle fibers. They're great for endurance and long workouts and runs. So this is when you want to go outside, you want to run a couple miles, or if you're lifting and you want to do like 20 reps of something, those things that we can do consistently for like a long time, but not necessarily at like a quick pace. Like it's just maintaining a pace. So it's not like our fastest mile time. It's more like how like running our marathon at a consistent pace instead of that super fast pace that we're talking about when we're in goal. So our fast twitch, on our other hand, our type 2, so 1 and 2, 1 and 2, we want 2. We produce the most force. So this means that we are able to get there super quick. We have the most energy coming out of it. They're used to move very quickly in a very short amount of time. So remember, our slow twitch ones were for longer things where we have time to like progress over that time period. And then our fast twitch ones, our type 2, the ones that we would want to focus on, are used in very short bits of time, very, very quickly, which is like saving a ball, right? We see the ball come out of the stick, and you have a maximum, I would say a maximum of a second to react to the ball in like kind of any scenario, unless somebody's really like here, and then you might have 2 seconds, and that's 2 seconds is generous. That ball has to be moving very slow. So that second bullet point under those fast muscle fibers, it's very important to be able to move very quickly in a very short amount of time. And so this is the third bullet point that just states responsible for high intensity exercises for a short period of time. And if we kind of just break that down a little bit, I know it's a lot of big words, just acknowledging what our position is we're sitting there and just waiting for somebody to shoot the ball at us. And then we go super hard, super fast in a super short period of time. So it's high intensity in a very short period of time, which is exactly what these muscle fibers are good at. So that's why it's so important to be able to develop them, and I'm going to talk next about how we can develop them a little bit more. So obviously, the last bullet point, just in case we missed the first point, we want to focus on type 2, so our fast ones. Alright, so now that you guys know how important our type 2 muscle fibers are and how those are our fast twitch ones, how do we train them? So we train them by kind of like a variety of things. I know I talked about strength and there is a sprinting like bullet point in here, but we'll touch on that more in the conditioning side of everything. But we want to do a bunch of, not heavy lifting, but I'll get into that. So lifting and then resistance lifting is also great. So for these sorts of things, we want to be, I'm sure you guys have had band workouts. I'm sure some goalies have been like, all right, what you want to do is like have a band on your stick and then try to explode your hands out or around your ankles. That's like kind of the resistance work that we're talking about. So if you're able to do any sorts of lifts. So maybe just say, you can take a long resistance band and put it over your feet, put it under your feet and put it over your shoulders and kind of do little squats. That's an example of a resistance. So what you can do is start at the bottom of that squat and then explode super quickly up. and then reset. And then start at the bottom again, explode super quickly up. So this is an example of resistance, because if we are doing this movement over and over and over again, starting in that squat and then exploding up and out somehow, we are working on being very quick, moving very quickly through a range of motion that is like kind of restricted, like you're kind of stopped from doing so. So when this happens and then there's no weight on your back, there's nothing, and you're able to do this movement, you're going to move so much faster because you don't have to hold the weight of what you were doing before. So I know we have people of all ages here, so I'm going to tailor this for all ages. When we're younger, I just want to make it clear that we don't need to be as focused in our training. I think it's helpful for certain things, like if we want to incorporate it into like a workout or two here and there, but I don't think it's like super important to be like so specific. But as you get older, I think it's good to have these things in our toolbox. Like once we get into high school and then like college, I think it's great to know. But I would say like middle school and younger, it's not like crucial that we're doing these things. But it's just good to know, it's good to be aware of in case there is something that you want to improve on. I think these sorts of exercises can really help. So especially if you are on the younger side, I think resistance would be a little bit more the way to go. Work on banded stuff or like some light weights. But then my older people, my like high school, my college people, I would definitely focus on a little bit more of those heavy lifting aspects where you can do weighted back squats or you can do dumbbell bench press, any sort of those things where we're moving just a little bit more weight. So once again, it can be made for all ages, but I just don't think it's necessarily as important at a little bit of the younger ages, just to be clear, because I didn't really start doing any of this until I was in later high school myself. All right, so I kind of touched on a couple examples of exercise from before. So I mentioned back squats, and then I mentioned bench press with dumbbells. There's also like box jumps, chin-ups, pretty much any exercise you think of when you think of being in the gym. Or if you see those gym commercials where Planet Fitness is trying to recruit you, or any other type of commercial that is kind of on TV just about gyms. Like a lot of these exercises are great for our position. So if we think about a back squat, you can have no weight on the bar, you could have no bar, you could just be doing some body weight squats. All are good because we're putting our thigh muscles, so our quads and our hamstrings that are responsible for a lot of that explosion when we're in the goal. We're giving time to help them develop. So when we have that resistance on our back, like I said before, even if it's just like 2 pounds of resistance, it's something more than we're used to. So our body's getting used to moving through that range of motion and moving all of that weight, and we're generating those muscle fibers that we need to be able to explode. So the number of back squats we're doing is like also super important, which I'll talk about next. But same thing with bench press. So our back squats really like focuses on our legs. So we focus on our quads, our hamstrings, even our calves, and a little bit of our core, because we have to keep ourselves upright when we're squatting down. Because if we squat down and we just lean all the way forward and put our chest to our knees, that's not helpful. That's not what we do in goals. So we also want to keep our back up as well. Bench press is when we're lying down on the bench and we have some weights in our hands. Once again, it can be a band, it can be anything that is appropriate for how advanced you are in terms of weightlifting, and just moving your arms through the range of motion. If I'm laying down on my back, just up and down like this. And this also helps, if you think about it, when the bar or the weight is down on your chest, throwing your arms out to the ball. So the same thing. So when we're down here, we're going super fast up. So something that's super important that I guess I need to highlight on here is that for the type of muscles that we want to develop, those fast twitch ones, the fast ones, the type 2 ones, we want to make sure that we're doing this at a weight that we can move. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bench like 445, like super heavy, like no reason for that. You need to put a little weight on the bar where it's like kind of tough, but we don't need it to be like impossible, because we want to get down to the range of motion and then we want to explode out of it super quick. So come down slow and then explode quick. Same thing when we're back squatting. We want to lower slow and then come back out of it quick. So our muscles are used to being in kind of the contracted position. So if you think about being in goal, any exercise where you're moving out away from your body for the explosion is key. So we're in goal, we're in our little squatted position, and that means we want to explode fast up. if our hands are in, we want to explode fast out for any exercises like that. Does that make sense? So pretty much any of the explosion that moves us in the way of like kind of making it safe. That's the way I think about it. Like if I'm in the gym, I'm like, all right, what exercise helps me move in the direction that I would move when I'm in goal. So I don't need to be fast coming in because I don't necessarily come in to make a save ever, but we do fast coming out. So in that sort of situation, I know to have some control on the way down, and then we want to power through on our way up, just for bench press, if that makes sense. But this is not limited to these 4 exercises as well. You can do rows, you can literally Google any sort of exercise, find something on YouTube that you like, that thinks targets where you want to target, and then you can do these reps over and over again, and I would just think like, okay, if I'm incorporating that piece of explosion into my my workout regimen, what makes sense in terms of what do I explode to? What do I work on moving fast? What do I work on controlling the weight down a little bit?
I like it.
Oh, sorry, Damon, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love it. You know, there's a couple of people asking, can I do this exercise? Can I do this exercise? Can I do this? Yeah, this is not the only, these are just, as the title says, examples of exercises. But you do want to hit exercises that, like you said, hit the chest, hit the shoulders. I think a lot of guys tend to focus on the upper body a little more than the legs and the butt, and the girls are the other way around, right? They tend to hit the lower body a little bit, especially when they get older. Tend to hit the lower body a little more than the upper body. They're both important, and you got to work both.
Yeah.
And you can also do this with body weight. Bench press can be push-ups, right? Back squats, you can do it with the resistance band, or you can just do like the burpees or with no weight. Chin-ups is a body weight exercise, as is box jumps. So it doesn't require a lot of weight.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Damon said, everything, like I said, the range of like ability here. I know we have younger people, I know we have older people on here, and I know that there's everything in between as well. So I understand that everybody might not be super comfortable in the gym or anything like that. So I want to let you guys know that these 100% can be done at home as well. Like Damon just said, push-ups are great, but same thing, like, so that one we would go slow down on our push-up and then like explode out of the bottom of our push-up back up to the top. So just those repetitions, just think about what has you exploding away from your body. And like I said, and like Damon just mentioned, like these 4 exercises are not the only exercise you should be doing. I just don't like a ton of words on the slides, so we can go over more options for exercise later. But like I said, guys, like you can go to YouTube and be like, okay, I want to work on my core strength. And just be like, okay, core exercises, and then just figure out how it can best benefit you. You don't have to do it exactly the way the girl or the guy on YouTube is demonstrating the exercise. I can definitely answer some questions about that later, but I'm just going to hop to the next point for right now. Alright, so this is about how many we should be doing. So, we can like go into the gym and just do like 40 of the same exercise and leave and call it a day, but we're not really going to get the most out of it in that sense. So what I mean by rep scheme is just like how many times should I do this exercise and why does this benefit me? So I said like heavier weights and resistance. So this is just like heavier in terms of you. Like heavier might be body weight for somebody, but heavier also might be a couple 100 pounds for somebody else, and that's okay. Like I said, like everybody has their own ability in the weight room, and just to be clear, your ability in the weight room and what you're good at in the weight room does not correlate to how you perform on the field. These are just things that can help improve your game if they're focused on correctly. So you could have people who've never touched a weight before but be amazing in goal, or people who have touched weights every single day of their life but cannot save a ball at all, just to be clear in that sense. But so rep schemes, you want to kind of find something that is kind of not like super easy for you, but we don't need to be like moving super hard where you're like, I don't know if I can get this up, I don't know if I can finish this movement at this exercise. So we talked about how our slower muscle fibers are great for endurance for long periods of time, but our fast twitch muscle fibers, our quick ones that help us move really quickly, are a lot better when there's a less amount of work being done. So when we start off working on our fast muscle fibers, we want to be doing it in a range that is correct to the type of like muscle that we want. So we want to be doing less amount of reps in this sense. So we don't want to be going in there and benching something for, like I said, 20 times. That's not necessarily getting us the muscle that we want to get. That's focusing a little bit more on that type 1, the slower one, being able to do it 20 times, being able to do it 30 times. So that, for that reason, we want to go a little bit heavier in our weight, not crazy heavy. We don't want to just be able to do it once and that's it, because that's not ideal. We want it to get a little bit heavier. So I don't know if anybody knows how much their maximum is or any of that, but you want to find a percent that's less than that, where you can comfortably move through the range of motion. I have 3 to 6 reps here, but I think you can go up to like 3 to 8 reps, where you can comfortably, like, I'm just going to keep using bench press right now because you guys can see my hands, so I think it's the easiest. So I'm lying on my back, I come down slow, explode up quickly. And so you want to do less reps. Anywhere from 3 to 6 I think is acceptable if you're able to explode out at that bottom part. And then you can do as many sets. Once again, I said from 3 to 6 sets again. So you do, let's just say our number is going to be 5. So I do 5 good reps of slow down, up quick, slow down, up quick. And then I want to take like 2 minutes, or I can go do another exercise for a little bit in the meantime. And then I want to come back to this and do like another set or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or 6, depending on how many sets your plan is. And just kind of rep this over and over again until, like, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout whatever your time period is, just so your muscles will get used to that movement, and then you'll be able to both increase in weight and increase in some of your reps. So then when that happens, that means like our muscle fibers that we are trying to get, those fast ones that us goalies love, are able to generate a little bit more. And then therefore, like, you're building this muscle, you're building this muscle, you're building this muscle, which is awesome. So like once, say we start at like, we're holding like 2 like 10-pound dumbbells when we first start. So we have 2 10-pounders and we're doing this. And then all of a sudden, after a couple weeks, I'm like, wow, I think I could do 15 reps at this weight. That's when we want to increase our weight. So then we're still falling in that rep range. So when we find that we're generating that strength, we want to make sure we're still increasing the weight to make sure we're still focusing on those fast muscle fibers instead of those long endurance ones. I think that's all I have for strength.
I like it.
All right, yeah. So now we're going to get into conditioning, which I know sounds so scary as a goalie. I get it. Been there, done that. But I promise it's not as scary as some of you guys might think it is. Take a quick drink of water real quick.
Yeah, well, most lacrosse goalies, we become goalies because we don't like the run. We don't like the conditioning, but it's super important. I'll tell just a real quick story while you're getting a sip of water. So I started out this one game, and I had a shutout going. Into the second half, and I've never had a shutout. Some of you maybe have. I never had one, and to start the third quarter, I sprinted out to chase 2 shots, like back-to-back plays, 2 sprints. And I was so gassed that I lost it. They scored on me, and not only did like that, I was so gassed physically, I lost it mentally. I couldn't recover, and we ended up losing the game by like 5 goals after I had a shutout going into the second half. So conditioning is important.
It definitely isn't. Actually, Damon, I'm gonna like kind of talk about that scenario, like getting to the end line, getting back in, getting to the end line, getting back in, because it is really important, and I think it's a lot. It's definitely a difference I noticed in the college game, moving from high school to college, that I was like, wow, like, I didn't realize how quick. I think everybody's heard that the game definitely picks up speed when you move from high school lacrosse to college lacrosse, but I don't think you actually gain an understanding and an appreciation for it until you're actually in the college game, until you're actively a part of it. So, our preface on conditioning. Now we're going to dive into it. All right, so conditioning for goalies. Sprints. So same thing, how we mentioned before. I think there's been a theme of that short but quick movement for us. I think that's very focused. We don't move for a very long amount of time, but we move very quickly within that time. So that happens to us in goal. We kind of just went over the weight room where we want to move for a short amount of time in a very powerful way. And then I think the same thing should contribute to us for conditioning. So I personally, this is my own training, everybody has a different approach to it. I couldn't tell you the last time I've ran like more than 2 miles. I like don't really go out. I don't do distance runs that much. I'm not good at it, and I find that it hasn't really helped me when playing lacrosse. This doesn't mean that it's not going to help some of you guys. It absolutely could. My approach, though, for me, is just to work on more short distance speed work because I think that's what contributes to my game the best. So I have sprints, exclamation mark, because I think this is what's most important. Because kind of like Damon mentioned, I'm a huge fan of being in goal, kind of looking behind me, seeing that a shot went wide and no one else is behind it, so I'm going to go chase it out. Or I want to get into a foot race with the opposing attacker to try to beat her to the line for a ball. So what is that? Maybe I think it's a little further for the guys. Is it further for the guys or further for the girls?
It is further for the
Guys, I think?
guys. Yeah, because the girls'
Like
crease
guys.
is behind the guys' crease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, you have a little further on, but that's okay. Um, so what is it? Maybe like a 20-yard sprint there and back. So once you get to the end line, if you lose it, you guys know you have to hustle to get back in, especially in college when the other team can just pick up the ball and immediately start playing. They don't have to wait for you to get back into the goal. They don't have to wait for the ref to blow the whistle. There's none of that. So what's going to happen is if you get to that line and you lose the ball, you have to get right back up and then sprint right back into the goal and be set and be able to be still. Like Damon said, we can't have that our heart is pounding. We just ran like a 20-yard sprint super quickly and then we're thrown off physically, we're thrown off mentally. So in this stance or in this position, this is why I think like sprints are also super important. And that whole side of conditioning that is definitely overlooked when it comes to goalies. So just another example, if you don't feel like you're a person that runs out to that end line or anything, we also clear the ball a lot. There's going to be times in college when you get pressured and you're going to have to carry the ball outside the crease. And then if you are being defended by an opposing attacker, you're going to have a little foot race until you can find your open teammate. So I know it feels like it might not translate because we're not the ones actively running on the field, but when you guys do have these scenarios where you are running the ball out, where you are trying to get the ball down the field, being able to run quickly, and then to maintain your composure after this run. So being able to still make the save, keep your head in the game, still maintain like all of these aspects of being a goalie is super important, which is why I think this sort of conditioning for goalies is very important. So same thing, like I said, the way we move, short, quick, that's it. And then the same thing in the weight room, I think once again applies to either field runs, treadmill runs, however you want to run. So I do a lot of short distance stuff, and like short distance, like you're like, oh, 120 yards, like that kind of sounds kind of long. I'm never gonna run a 120-yard sprint in a game. No, but training for it a little longer is gonna make that 20 yards feel like nothing. So remember how we talked when we were talking about strength, how having a little bit of weight on your back while you're back squatting up is going to be heavy, but then once we don't have that weight on our back, we're able to move through that motion super quickly. Same thing here. If I'm great at running a 120-yard sprint and then I go to run a 20-yard sprint, I'm going to be like, that was nothing. I can do 12 more of those right now. So kind of the same approach here, where we're not doing anything crazy, where we're not going out running 7 miles before practice or anything like that. But just short distance, I like to do to the 30s, just to kind of, or 120s to the 30, just to like kind of get that change of direction in terms of, okay, I hit the line, I just lost the ball on the end line, and now I'm going to hustle and get back into my goal. So 120s to the 30 is just running from the goal line to the 30-yard line and back twice. So it's just like 3 turnarounds, I guess. That's like a decent run, like I said, like a 30-yard run there and back. It's going to feel like nothing compared to sprinting to the end line and back. You also have 100-yard sprint jog walks, which is you sprint 100 yards from end line to end line, then you jog 50 yards back to the 50, and then you walk back to where you started. Then you sprint the 100, jog back to the 50, walk the rest of the way, sprint to the 100, jog to the 50, walk back the rest of the way. So like I said, all of these are like pretty short, high intensity when you're doing these though. Like these are max effort runs, and then you get like a decent recovery time, because we do get a decent recovery time within our position. but being able to do these like multiple times, like in a row, over and over and over again, is going to make these little instances where we do need to chase balls out, when we do need to do these things, like feel like almost nothing. The last one I have listed here are flying 50s, where you start on the 25, or sorry, start on the end line, jog to the 25, sprint to the opposite 25, jog to the other end line. And then once you get there, you turn around, jog the first 25, sprint to the other 25, jog the rest of the way. So these are just a couple examples of short distance sprints. There's hundreds. Like I said, same thing with like the strength portion. There are countless sorts of runs that you can do that involve short distance or a little bit of change of direction, like hitting the end line and exploding back to your crease, that done in repetition will be great for our position and very specific to what we do in goal. So these are just 3 of my favorites that I like doing. Like I said, though, everybody has their own sort of thing that they like to do and their own focus that they're going for, their own goals within their fitness programs and for their goalie training. So, like I said, Google workouts. I go to the field sometimes and make up a workout and be like, I'm going to run to the 75 and then I'm going to do something else. Like, you can make it up and that's totally fine, but those short distance, keeping your heart rate up, working really, really hard for that maybe minute that you're moving, and then getting a little recovery, and then going really hard again is just super important for continuing to generate those fast twitch, those type 2 muscle fibers that we've talked about. Alright, so now that we've talked about a little bit of strength, a little bit of conditioning, I think it can be like, okay, where do I start? How do I blend? What do I do? Do I use more of this one? Is more strength important? Is more conditioning important? But I think it's important to know that, like, once again, everybody's going to require different things. Some people are going to want to be better at running. Some people are going to be a little bit stronger, and that's okay. Everybody's approach is different, and I think if you ask any other goalie, if you guys have seen anybody else on the goalie or on the summit that Damon has put together, no one will say that they have the same training program at all. Even if the people went to the same school, live together, are related, like, there is no one specific plan that works. I'm just sharing what I have found to work for myself and a couple other goalies I know, but nothing specific. Anyways, I think approaching with a blend of both strength and conditioning is great. So I personally try to aim for at least 3 days of strength and at least 3 days of conditioning. So this, I think, is a good balance. I know your middies are out there, they're like, oh, we run 6 days a week. I don't feel like that's necessary for myself, and that's okay. But I have to incorporate at least 3 days of strength and at least 3 days of conditioning to get that to where I want to be, like that optimum threshold. Some people might be, I only want 1 day of strength and I only want 1 day of conditioning, and that might be where you're at right now, and that is totally fine. But I just think being able to know that you can balance these two and how they both can play into your game and develop you as a goalie, I think is fantastic. Because we can all go out to the field, and I'm pretty sure that we all have 5 or 6 like solid goalie like lacrosse drills up our sleeve that we can go do. We can go do a couple shooting drills. We can go do a couple of like footwork drills and that sort of thing. But we might feel kind of lost in the weight room or lost like at home when you're like, I kind of just want to like move my body a little bit. But being able to like do it in a productive way that helps our game, I think, is huge. So like once I said, I'm currently a Division I athlete. I do at least 3 days of each of these movements. It's typically usually like at least 4 of each of these movements, so I like combine days at times. But like I said, for my younger people, I don't think it's as necessary right now. But to have this knowledge and to be able to use it in the future, I think is huge, and like I think is great. But you don't need 3 days of strength, 3 days of conditioning necessarily right now. So it's being able to gauge what you need, what you think your goals are right now, and being able to adjust to that. I can definitely answer like kind of specific questions on that a little bit later if need be. We're kind of wrapping up here, but I just have a little summary. So in summary, we want to work at a super high intensity for short intervals. Like I said, this will mimic gameplay. So in goal, we are being very still. We have a lot of downtime, but then we need to move very quickly in a very short amount of time. So we want our lifts, anything we do in the weight room to look like that. And same thing with our conditioning, any running, any exercise that's going to get us our breath up, our heart rate up, and that sort of thing. So a combination of strength and conditioning is crucial, and try to balance these days. So I do think that it is important to get strength and conditioning instead of just strength or just conditioning. So if you do want to do this approach where you want to focus a little bit more on your fitness instead of like the lacrosse side of it, I think it's definitely important to do both, because if you get way too strong, then you're not going to be able to run to the end line to get that ball. But if you're running all the time and then you have no strength to like actually keep yourself up in goal and be able to react to these balls as quickly as you can, I think that's like also can be like a part of like performance and goal. So just being able to do both of these things and balance them throughout the time. And like I said, like any exercise that you Google that you're like, I want to work on this, and an exercise pops up, I'm sure it'll work. Just like kind of think about how it'll mimic like your gameplay when you're playing lacrosse, when you're in the goal, when you're making a save, that sort of thing. All right, I'm ready for questions.
Love it. Well, questions we do have, but first of all, thank you very much for going through that. So cool to see. Yeah, so cool to see. I thought that was great for all ages. For all ages, right? That wasn't, that's kind of what you do, or what you like to do, in your training. But I think that would also be great for, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and some of the youngsters that we have on the call, especially when we talk about just, the resistance and body weight stuff and the sprints. That's something you can do at any age. So, awesome. Let's see. Let's get into the questions. We've been asking every goalie this question. What made you start playing goalie?
Awesome. So I was just like on a little all-star team for my rec team when I was like 11 or 12 years old, and it was just like a bunch of like athletic younger girls who like enjoyed playing lacrosse, and they were like, all right, we need a goalie for this game. And I was like, I'll do it, why not? Absolutely loved it. And just stuck with it ever since. Nothing like crazy special. I was just thrown in there, and I was like, yep, this is for me.
Team needed a goalie, and you liked it.
Yep, pretty much.
I like it. All right. Tobin wanted to know, do you follow the same split for off-season versus in-season?
Like in terms of like the conditioning, like the strength and conditioning?
Yeah, that's what I'm...
That's a very good question. I try to keep it pretty balanced. Honestly, if anything, I'll run a little bit more in-season just to keep that endurance side up of it. Just because in practice we'll go a little lighter, so I'm not seeing as many shots, so my workouts aren't as intense. So I'll try to run just a little bit more, so I'm still like breathing really hard, and I'm still like working on those like little fast things that kind of like make me a little bit more tired than lifting can sometimes.
Love it. Dalen's a young female goalie. She says, what is the practice/conditioning schedule like at a D1 school? So maybe you could take us through, what a day looks like in terms of your practicing and conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 lifts a week, and so when we first get to school, we don't play any lacrosse. We just have 3 lifts a week. So we're in the weight room 3 times a week, and we're running at least 4 or 5 days a week. But then, like, 2 weeks into school, we'll start lacrosse. So we'll start lacrosse, we'll run about 3 days a week, and we'll still lift 3 days a week. But pretty much every off day, there's always girls out there running, especially our middies, our attackers, our defenders are always out there running as well. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest, I don't run 5 days a week. I don't. I would love to say that I do, but I don't. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So it definitely looks different for everybody's position, but then like once we get into season, we'll do like a lot of team stuff, so we'll do some team runs. Like I said, we'll try to keep it at 2 or 3 lifts a week as a team. And we'll have practice. So a lot of schools do it differently, but my team does practice first, then we run, and then we have lift, if that helps at all.
All right. I think it does. Well, that's one of the benefits of being a goalie, right? We don't have to run as much as those middies. We still got to be in great shape. But the middies got to run a lot more than us.
Yep, exactly.
One thing I'll throw out there that you should try is I grew up playing basketball. I had this youth basketball coach, and at the end of practice, we would always run sprints, and then we would shoot free throws. And he would say, anybody can make a free throw when they're like fresh, yep. when their muscles are like totally fresh. But can you make a free throw in the fourth quarter after you've been running up and down the entire time. And the same goes for saves, right, Emily? Like,
Yep.
anyone could, it's easier to make a save when your muscles are all fresh and you're feeling good, but at the end of the fourth quarter, when you've been running a little bit, can you make that save?
Yep. Nope. We do the same thing. We'll do that at the end of practice. We'll run, and then we'll have to shoot 8-meter shots afterwards.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Cool. Max wanted to know, when you're under lots of pressure, how do you still be the fastest that you can?
Awesome. So I think I'm a huge believer in preparation. I know a lot of my other summits and just presentations in general with Damon have definitely talked about just kind of preparation and trusting what you have done to prepare for this moment that you're in right now. So I think knowing that you have put in the work to be in that position, if you hadn't put in the work to be standing in that stressful situation, you wouldn't be there. Like, you're there for a reason, you're in the goal for a reason, like, and this situation is happening for a reason. So I think trusting that, like, you are also there for a reason and that you have all the tools, all the knowledge, everything you need to know to, like, handle that situation is the best thing that you can do. Because if we're worried about all the things that we didn't do to prepare, we're thinking about how maybe I don't have the right tools, how I don't have the right knowledge to be in this sort of stance, or if I'm too tired, I think that's where we kind of like start like not believing in ourselves. But when we trust in our preparation and we're like, I got this, I've worked for this, I've done the lifts, I've done the runs, I've gotten the extra shots, I know what's coming, and I'm in this stance, and like I'm here for a reason, and just really believing in that. At least for myself, I've noticed like a hugely different like sort of situation. Like, I remember going into the Final Four being like, oh my goodness, I'm playing in the Final Four, and then like looking at myself and being like, I've worked so hard, and there's a reason for my team belonging here and myself belonging here as well, and I'm going to trust those reasons. And then it's just up to you, because we don't just like go to a lacrosse game and play like our best game. Like, that just doesn't happen without any sort of preparation. So we know that the preparation and the work that we put in off the field, no matter what that looks like, if that's lifting, if that's running, if that's getting extra shots, if that's watching film, however that looks for you as a goalie, and just trusting what you've done to get to that situation, I think is key. So the same thing applies for like trusting how fast we're going to move to this ball or anything. Like, be like, all right, I did the work to be able to sustain this fast movement over and over and over again, so I'm in a position to do great and to be able to excel in it.
That was